Good evening, friends, and welcome to the Spiritual Side of Virginia. It's so good to be with all of you tonight. We're going to start by reading a message psychographed by the medium Divaldo Franco called Envy. Among the imperfections of the human character, a direct descendant of selfish envy stands out. This dissolving manifestation of moral imperfection. Many tragedies that occur in society are suspicious fruits of the cultivation of this disgraceful conduct. Terrestrial existence has, as its psychological purpose, given the gregarious instinct the preservation of solidarity, which is based on the fraternal assistance that must exist among all people. Despite this imperative of survival, a large number of human beings opt for competitive behavior, unable to rejoice in the achievements and joys of their neighbors in the ascension journey. They allow themselves to be hurt by their own failures or tormented by the thirst of living in a regime of exclusion. They only permit themselves to enjoy the fleeting happiness that they tenaciously turn against all those who seem to threaten their triumph or hate the glory they have not achieved. Relying on the pettiness to which they indulge, they create true programs of persecution against others, giving way to lies and slander that they skillfully create, delivering continuous arrows poisoned by the inferior feelings with which they indulge. Friends of yesterday, who remained in fraternity, faced with the prominence of one of them, instead of rejoicing, one of them becomes intoxicated with anger and becomes a gratuitous executioner, hiding behind false arguments to give vent to frustration that invades it. The entire process of moral and especially spiritual evolution is carried out through overcoming aggressive instincts and imperfections maintained in primitive and past experiences. Envy manages to disguise itself and interfere in social and human behavior with skill, manifesting itself with false, apparently naive expressions when it does not explode untimely in viral combat. The envious person, without a doubt, is very unhappy because they suffer disturbing emotions that harm themselves. In turn, the immediate thought carries a wave of negative energy that often reaches the person against whom it is directed, if the receiver is mentally tuned into an equivalent vibrational range. Excellent quality therapy to overcome envy is the effort that must be made for the good of all, helping without hesitation in order to contribute to the general happiness.
Let's feel our loving connection with God, dear Mother, Father God. Your universe is so beautiful and great. You created each one of us with a specific purpose that we're yet to understand. But we already rejoice, knowing that we always progress, never regress. We rejoice in knowing that we were made for this moment, for this lesson today, for the therapy, for the mind and the bodies that you with your messengers are providing to us. We're deeply grateful for the loving spirit guides the directors of the Spirit Society of Virginia and Corey Creative, who have prepared this therapeutic environment with specific apparatuses, specific energies, vibrations that will balance ourselves. May we cooperate in this process by making an effort to be easy, recognizing what we still don't know instead of the reverse. Being good students, applying ourselves, visualizing new scenarios in our lives, seeking the good in this moment, and especially sending the best of our feelings and thoughts to those who are in our lives in two realms and are in greater need than us. We pray especially for those who persecute the cause of the good in the world. May they feel the call to your loving heart, which only provides happiness and peace. Feeling your guidance, the envelopment of your protection. We thank you for granting us the permission to begin this moment of deep therapy for each one of us in two rounds. And so be it. All right. So let's just make sure everything is in place. Okay. Let's not forget, right? What we're studying is Spiritism. Nothing new. There are names, of course, in the spiritual being, but it's Spiritism from A to Z. All the references are in the books we have read. Nothing is invented, but there is an approach that is different because it boosts our inner reflection. As we said before, the book Renunciation is going to be a guide for us for emotions just like this one, right? For those who are reading Renunciation or reading it again, we'll see today in the emotions of Susana Davenport and Antero, envy, jealousy, etc. And we think, I don't feel it. I'm not going to point fingers because we know on earth, oh, we feel it. But we don't observe it. But we need to observe it. Why? The minute we feel it, we connect with whom? Like-minded minds. In the Spirit's book by Kardec, in chapter, look at this, part 2. Spirit's book has 4 parts. So interesting because people look at the Spirit's book, they are intimidated because they say, oh my gosh, it's like a brick. It's an immortal brick. If we step on it, it's going to catapult us to a happy life. But you don't have to read from A to Z. You can choose part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 talks about God and the elements of the universe. Part 2 talks about the spiritual world, the interactions. Part 3 is about the laws, the divine laws. And part 4, probably what we need mostly nowadays, consolation, hope, and consolation. It's beautiful. You don't have to read everything. Read one question. It can be a random, but it changes everything. But there's one part in part 2 of chapter 9, intervention of the spirits in our lives. It begins with a classical question by Kardec. Can the spirits intervene in our lives? And the answer is striking. More than you can imagine. So if you imagine this much, it's more. No, they don't interfere. Okay, Kardec is saying it's more than you think. They do. Why? Because that's the nature of life. But what kind of spirits are interfering or intervening? It depends. Those that I allow, the good spirits are always willing to help us. The bad spirits are always willing to unhelp us. And they are the ones when we feel a little bit of jealousy, they come and say, take her husband. You deserve it. Like they said, the manual doesn't tell us all. And you know why he didn't disclose everything in the books? Because we would go nuts. What he discloses is already much. But that's what they say. Yeah, go there. You deserve it. Poor husband. Yeah, and they come. And you think they are your friends? No. They want to. They want to go down because you're gonna feel guilty, like Susanna did. And later in life, no wonder you go to nursing homes. In the third part of our lives, you see people who led a very good life. Suddenly they, oh, you don't know what they've done. Because the people who did right, oh, I've seen it. They have a good aging years. The ones that messed up, and we're not talking about killing anybody. We're just talking about lying, cheating, being dishonest, not sincere, ambitious, leaving your children for last, prioritizing everything but the important things. So today, this message by Divaldo Franco matches where we are. Last time we were here, we're studying mostly torments. What are torments? Simple. You can see in a child. The millennial torment. They go to school. They come back and say, I'm sad. Why? Because the teacher chose my friend to go up front and write on the board. Jealousy. We need to work on that. At work for an adult, I'm upset because my boss is focusing on my colleague, not me. Torment. This person carries that torment, that, what is a torment? It's a deviated way of seeing life. We are alienated from the truth because actually that teacher didn't choose. Teachers just pick. They say, you come. Why? Because I need somebody. Okay, that's why. And probably you're the closest. You're not more beautiful. You're not more wealthiest. Or it's just because I need somebody here, for goodness sake. And people just feel, or in our family relationships, when people are like, oh, they're giving more attention to her than me, to him than me, and you don't pay attention to me. Hello, torment. That's torment. Because Jesus is not like that. You could pass by him, not say hi. He wouldn't be like, oh, you don't say hi to me, I'm the Messiah. He would even say, don't say anything. Don't tell anyone. But that's who we are. We are tormented. We need to get out of this torment because it's not helping us. In our health, in our relationships, in life. We've been repeating mistakes, and make no mistake, Susanna, as far as we know, based on Chico Xavier, she is the reincarnation of Claudia Sabina in 50 years later. So she has been this envious, jealous person for centuries. And she keeps on doing the worst choices based on her deviated mind. It's as if she's not seeing what's happening to her real, right? Because if this person is married to this person, from that day on, it's none of everybody's business. When we try to get in, we are not well. Susanna. Antero, the same. Who is he? Antero and Susanna, back in 50 years later, they are married. Claudio Urbico and Claudia Sabina. They're married, but they don't care about each other. It's just arranged marriage. He cared about other people, and so did she. And they were both interested in the couple, Alva Lucinia and Elvidio Lucius. Now they all reincarnate together. And what happens? We'll see. But to help us in that regard, Daisy and Carol are going to lead us into the nuances of these torments. Okay? Right? I think I did right.
So, friends, as Vanessa was saying, we're here to study about ourselves, our spiritual being. It's really easy to sit here and think, oh, that person or that person, but we're here to think about ourselves. So, tonight, we're invited to take a little submarine and go deeper within ourselves. Not just sit here think of that person, but how about us? So let us just recap. We saw this a few weeks ago, but we cannot talk about ourselves without starting where everything starts, at the cradle, at the reincarnation. Why are we here? Has a lot of people in our society think we're here to enjoy life, to have fun, to have an easy life. But we are here today because we made the decision to be here. And through Spiritism, we get to know that we reincarnate to make profound transformations. Where? Within ourselves, first and foremost, and through our relationships. Because we don't progress without these relationships with one another. So, this profound transformations needs to happen within ourselves. So, as we've been studying for a few weeks, and we were studying even in the Laws of Love book, that victim card, we trash it out. Because people say, I'm this way because my mom, because my dad, because my family, because the country I was born in, the city, my teacher. And it's very easy to point fingers to others. But Spiritism comes and say, you are reincarnated exactly in the family that we need, in the circumstances, in the country, in the city. So as we go through this course on the spiritual being, we will be asked to reflect. Why? And then people say, but why, God? So let us study ourselves. Let us go back, let us ask our mom, how was our pregnancy with us? How was our childhood growing up? What were our parents going through? Because we have our camera, they have their camera. And maybe their lives were in this chaos and we had no idea. So why we reincarnate? Because we are destined to progress. Jesus said, you can do what I'm doing and much more. Why? Because we are all destined to progress. So the next time we look at someone and we think, oh my God, I don't know how that person will get there. Guess what? We all will get there. And sometimes that person that we have the lowest hopes, it's it's quantum. The change happens so fast that in the future they might be helping us because we're still there. So who are we to say? But we're here to think about us. We are destined to progress. So we need to acquire all the virtues, the patience, the tolerance, the understanding, forgiveness, loving, caring, everything opposite to the torments that we're going to talk about tonight. So the main objective of our existence on earth is to adjust ourselves to the divine laws, building moral values in our relationships. That's why Vanessa mentioned, and we say it again, let's go back to the Spirit's book, part 3, and let us study the divine laws. What are these divine laws? Kardec asked the question, where are the divine laws written? And the Spirit's answer, they are written in our conscience. But then Kardec says, but why? Why do we still make mistakes? Well, we either disregard it, so we know it and we put it aside, or we need to remind ourselves. So that's why in the Spirit's book, we have all the 10 divine laws there. Great. But now we cannot say we don't know it. Now we do. It's our fingertips. But it's hard. Why? Because we're tormented. We are, as Vanessa was saying, we don't see the reality. We see something else. So we get to know in the course of the spiritual being that the absence of moral values, so the deviation from the truth, in what? The absence of experience in the good, they establish the torment. So every time we are against God's laws, and we don't have that foundation to keep us strong in the good, we're tormented. So the question is, who is not tormented nowadays? We all are. But that's why we're here. That's why previous lives, we reincarnate. But we're not going to be able, it's not only about opening the Spirit's book and reading the 10 laws and closing and say, oh, okay, now I'm a moral person. It doesn't work that way. Why? Because we need the constant effort on the good. That's why we need to push ourselves, our children, to do as much good as we can so we can get out of this torment. Thinking about others, do we see the exercise? The torment is when we are in me, mine. Why me? I want this. I want that. I'm sad. I'm envious. I'm jealous. The moment we shift and we start thinking about what would that person like? As we'll see with Susanna's case. If she stopped and thought, hold on, Madalena is my friend. What would I would like to receive if the roles were reversed? So that is the exercise. Every torment, without exception, is in an addicted thought or pattern, and all addictions grow from inertia. So every torment comes from an addictive pattern, as Vanessa was saying, that we bring from many lives. And they all start from inertia. What? Inertia of sitting and watching TV the whole day? This is the inertia of the spirit. The inertia of only thinking about ourselves, not having those constructions of the good. The virtue of your generation, our generation, this is in the gospel according to spiritual, is intellectual activity. It's vices, moral indifference. So how are we gonna get out of inertia? That's why we say, let's learn something new. Let's learn something new. Of our inner self, of our intellectual activity. How are we gonna do different if we don't know what is different? So we need to push ourselves every day. Open a book, read a page, read a paragraph, listen to a message. And we can maximize our time. We can be there in the car listening to a podcast. We can be washing our clothes, cleaning the house. Oh, but I don't have time. But we have time to watch the most recent series out there or the movie. So let us get a book. Let us read a page. Because the vice is moral indifference. It's when we drive by and we see someone on the street, and the first thing we think, oh, they are lazy. That is moral indifference. Remember, reverse the roles. If we were there asking for money, would we like other people to say, oh, that person is lazy? It's when we have someone under our own roofs that are going through difficult moments and we're indifferent. That's how we are tormented. So there's no vice without inertia. It all starts in no action. And the establishment of that vice becomes a torment. So we see, friends, as a cycle. And how we get out of this cycle, we're going to talk about today. How to get rid of this pride and selfishness mold. Because at the end of the day, as it's in the Spirit's book, the roots of it is pride and selfishness. So before we talk about the remedy, we need to study what are these torments? Where are those torments in our lives? So let us name them out. Before we go directly to the case of Susana and Antero, it's when we're sad. You talk to people and they're always complaining. If sunny, it's too hot. If it's raining, it's because it's too wet. It's raining. If it's summer, it's because it's summer. If it's winter, it's because it's winter. And they're always there in the sadness. They paint everything black. They only see the cup half empty. That is a torment. They are tormented. Why? Because people who are happy, they're not tormented. Jesus said that one of the trademarks of his disciples was joy. Jesus was a joyful person. Imagine, friends, we are the governor of the planet. We incarnated. We're persecuted. There are lies against us. We look and we see what Caesar is doing. Remember, we're the governor. In our minds, we say, oh, Jesus had all the reasons to be sad. He could say, what are you guys doing? And we don't read anywhere that Jesus was sad. Yes, he would become melancholic in a way that for us, not because he was a sad person, but we don't see that Jesus was looking and say, oh my gosh, people are crazy. The world is upside down. He will never do that. So sadness is a torment. And that's why if you go to psychiatry, you don't actually even need to go to psychiatry doctors anymore. You go to your primary care and they're like, oh, really? Oh, you're feeling, oh, yes, you're depressed. But that's everything. So depression now is the label for everything, right? And they're like, oh, I'm going to prescribe you something. That is how we are nowadays. And then people start taking these medications and they're just anesthetizing themselves because deep down they're not working their torments. Why they're feeling that way is when we have resentment, when we hold grudges. Things happen all the way in the past and we're still resented. We still play that same video from years ago, decades ago, but we're still there tormented. Why? Do we think the person that did that to us is there thinking about it? No, so why? We're doing that to ourselves. So, forgiveness. What is the remedy? Joy, forgiveness, understanding is when we feel hatred. Oh, I hate this. I hate that. And you talk to people and they use the word hate so easily. And you're like, no, please. It's such a strong word. We'll see the description of Susanna when she gets to know that her cousin is in love with Madalena. She feels so much anger, so much hatred for her friend. And then things happen in our lives. So let us look at these sentiments in our lives. When do we feel hatred? As Vanessa said, for us to identify so that we can go back is when we feel envy. This message is so beautiful because it says, when we allow ourselves to be hurt by our own failures and tormented, he used the word, by the thirst of living in a regime of exclusion. So we think we deserve everything. And we think that our happiness is above it all. So we do everything. That is envy. That's when we're tormented. Is when we turn on Facebook and we see that someone is in Greece or the Maldives and we feel envious. I would like to be there. How come I'm not there? And then what people do, all crazy things. They get in debt, credit card debts, and all, just to say that they also went to that trip or they also bought that car because they're envy. So we see this is very normal in our society. Is when we feel jealous, as Susanna will see. The moment that she finds out, she is jealous and she's gonna do everything it takes so she can have that as well. Can we not be happy if other people are getting married, traveling? Great, good for them. Let us be happy for them. And then things happen in our lives and we don't even know, but we're there. We're posting it. How many people they cry one day, their life is ending. The next day they're posting beautiful things on Facebook as if their lives is perfect and beautiful. That is the torment. Because why you need to show the world that everything is beautiful? And then what type of energy we are attracting to ourselves? Do we think everyone in our social media be like, oh, that is so nice? Mm, let us think twice. Spite. You know, so interesting because spite we think is about saying something, being malicious to order, but sometimes we're spiteful because we give people the silent treatment. We think I'm gonna get back to them. How? I'm just gonna give them the silent treatment. That is being spiteful. And then when we have anger and fear, fear of what? Because if we have God as the center stages in our lives, fear will go away. But if we open our hearts to fear, it's an easy way for us to connect with the regions of spirits that play on fear. When people say, oh, but I'm afraid of the world is gonna end because this country has that bomb, because of that, and then they're playing in this card, especially the discarnate spirits. Fear is the hook to control us. How many people don't do things out of fear? So what is the opposite? Is when we have this faith in God that everything is gonna work out. So let us go through and let us point out as we read. This is Emmanuel's words we got directly from the book, so we can identify not only jealous and hatred, because we'll see here there Susanna's torments are many. So let us recap the scenario. Susanna, she's the cousin of Cyril, or Cirilo in Portuguese. They're cousins. The families know each other. At that time, it was expected that in the future they would get married to one another. The family expectations. So deep down, Susanna had feelings for Cyril. She had a loving feeling for him. But, she never thought too much about it. She was there, living her life in Paris, going to balls. And if you read the dialogues, that's exactly, she's in that mode. Very superficial, very materialistic, worrying about the clothes because who is the affair of the king? That was Susanna's life. That's what she worried about. And then one day she's there with her cousin. He's 25, she's 20. And he says, Susanna, I need to tell you something. I need to talk with someone. I need to open my heart. And then she's like, oh my God, he's gonna declare his love to me. She was like ready. Okay, it's the time has come. And then he says, oh, but love is so beautiful because we're here to conquer that. And he's like, do you think she feels the same way? And then she's like, what? She? In her mind, she's like, she? But I thought he was declaring his love to me. What? Well, who is she? Madalena Villamil. Madalena? Madalena, her friend, quote unquote, friend. She had introduced the two of them. And then let's see. This is Emmanuel's words on how she feels. At that moment, He described horrible jealous spoiled her joy. Her heart suddenly shut down. She could not bear such affront. She would fight for Cyril even to the point of crying and death. That was exactly her feeling. So Susanna was tormented. We're gonna see later on, she didn't even, when he starts describing his feelings, she had that infatuation, she had loving feelings, but at that moment, he became even more beautiful to her. So she wouldn't be happy of someone else. How come someone else will have his mind? And she said, I would do anything to the point of crime and death. Friends, nowadays we might not quote unquote kill someone with our hands, but we kill them in our lives by the words we say, by the way we treat them, by creating intrigues, fake news. So we might not kill with our hands. It's in relationships in our families. When people say, oh, I don't talk to my dad or my mom for this many years. Of course, there are every situation, but that is sometimes the crime and the death. We don't do it ourselves. But with our words, we can make someone feel like we are actually killing them. He continues, he says, she no longer considers herself a sisterly companion for strolls and amusements. See? When they were there doing the things at a time, they were best friends. But now she was a dangerous opponent whom she wanted out of the way immediately. And you see in the book, we don't want to spoiler alert, she will go to the end to do everything to get Styria in her life. But then you read the book and you ask, did that make her happy? It didn't. From this moment on, however, the Villamil girl was condemned by her cruel aversion. Her splendid friendship had turned into instant and dangerous hatred. Emmanuel's words. So we see from jealous to fight to hatred. Susanna could not stop the wave of vindictive thoughts that were invading her mind and mercilessly taking possession of her heart. Remember, this conversation took place in just a few minutes, but she went. That's when we are tormented like Susanna. Because that was the click. And from that day on, in her life, her main objective was to have Cyril in her life, didn't matter what. And as we mentioned, at that moment, she felt even more attracted to him. So why, right? And we know why, as Vanessa explained. Is this from this life? Is this feelings show up at that very moment? No. She brought them from many lives. And we saw in the book 50 years later that she had the same. If you read this and you go back and read Claudia Sabina, we will see exactly the same torments, the jealous, the hatred, the envy. But why? She was given a new reincarnation. You see how it's beautiful? That's why it's beautiful that we read these books. Because we see a different reincarnation with a different still with the same group of people with a different disposition, an opportunity for her. What was an opportunity for her to say what? If she truly loved Cyril, what she would have done? Yeah, she would have, yeah, she would step away, right? She says, okay. As later in the book, we'll see the beautiful, right? The the main one of the main characters of the book. And we'll see how she truly loved Abigail. She true Alcyone. Alcyone. I'm getting Alcyone truly loved Carlos. Because there is a moment later in the book where Alcyone, just to portray the difference, at some point in the story, she encounters Carlos again. He's married, and she says, you know, I would be happy to be a servant at your house, to serve your wife, not to have an affair with him. No, she wants to help. She said, he said, I'm already having problems in my marriage. She said, I want to help. That is the true love. When she put her own feelings aside and said, I would be happy to see you every day and be a servant in your house and help your relationship with your wife. That is true love. But then we see the contrast with Susanna. So, friends, let us keep this in mind as Carol is going to now show to us the other character in this story to portray the torments that we all go through.
So, friends, Emmanuel really wants to help us to take an inner journey and recognize ourselves, get to know ourselves better. In the Spirit's book, we find out that the fastest route towards spiritual progress is self knowledge. So, all of these novels by Emmanuel are a therapeutic invitation from the Christ for each and one of us, incarnated and discarnate alike, to discover ourselves and to boost our inner wisdom so that we can make wiser choices for immortality. So let us continue this inner journey with Emmanuel's support by looking even closer at the torment of envy, now not through the lenses of Susanna, but through the lenses of Antero. Who is Antero? As Vanessa explained, Antero and Susanna in a previous life were married, but they didn't love each other. They had their eyes on other people. And now these other two people are reincarnated and they still, guess what they're doing? They're still keeping their eyes on the same two people. So, what does that show? That if we don't have the courage to get to know ourselves, our torments are likely going to accompany us for centuries, as they have done with Susanna and Antero. Let us see Antero's inner world more closely now through Emmanuel's kind help. Antero is in a moment in the narrative where he finds out that Madalena fell in love with Cyril. Madalena is his beloved. Madalena has been his beloved for centuries. But he reincarnated. Daisy reminded us. Why do we reincarnate? To make profound transformations. So, why was he put in this particular situation? This, for him, like for Susanna, was a test to see if he had improved spiritually and to test if he could act differently. What was the outcome that we hypothesized he agreed upon prior to reincarnating? What was his reincarnatory plan? Because everyone's reincarnatory plan is one of love. Of course, it was for him to overcome who? Himself. What particular goal was he to overcome? The torment of envy. So he was to be put in the same scenario, find the same beloved, feel the same attraction, and sublimating. Not pursue it, not feel jealous. However, was he able to overcome himself? Not quite. Let us allow Emmanuel to tell us what happened. In Emmanuel's words, we learn in the recesses of his being, Antero held an elusive, and profound resentment that would ruin his life. Emmanuel doesn't sugarcoat it at all. He's telling us the truth that when we allow torments to control us, they can really take us off course. What course is that? The course of our reincarnatory plan. Then he cries, says Emmanuel. Antero is feeling so much resentment that he bursts into tears. And as he, let us imagine this, friends, as he wipes his tears, he harbors plans of vengeance in the depths of his mind like a subtle poison. So Emmanuel is telling us through the lenses of Antero that when we hold grudges, as Daisy reminded us, we are poisoning ourselves. We may believe that we are getting even with someone else, but in reality, we are poisoning and hurting ourselves first and foremost. We may not, as Daisy said, nowadays, be as forward as Antero and devise great plans of vengeance, but we may engage in mental battles. We may spend 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years thinking of that same person in a mental loop, saying to ourselves, why did they do this to us? We didn't deserve it. They should have known better. Why did they? Don't don't they know who we are? How did they have the courage? Ta-na-na, 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 ta-na-na. We know people that we've met that we've known for quite a while. Every single time we talk to them, they go again. You know that person? They did this and they did that and they did that and they did that. Why did they do that to us? Ta-da-da, ta-da. Here we go again. That person, as we are in a mental battle when we engage in this. The question is, can we see this in ourselves? Are we ourselves in this mental loop? Because if we are, then we are poisoning ourselves. Who says that? Not us, but Emmanuel. Emmanuel is painting an emotional, spiritual portrait of what the consequences of torments are. So let us be courageous and look at this portrait and see where we can adjust ourselves. And as Daisy explained, why is it that we stay in a mental loop like this? Because we think that we deserve better, because we think we are the center of the world, because it's always me, my, and me again. So, how can we leave that circle? By starting to think of others, the interest of others genuinely. But did Antero make that choice? Let us see what Emmanuel tells us. Emmanuel says, after thinking about the fact that Madalena had fallen in love with Cyril over for a while, he stared into space as if he was driven by a terrible idea, as if he was driven mad, excuse us, by a terrible idea. What was this terrible idea? Emmanuel tells us he made an inner decision at that very moment that he would fight for Madalena until the end of his days. And if we read the book, we see that he sadly followed through with that. We will not give you any more spoilers because we invite you to read for yourself. But he really did follow through. He created a war for himself. This spirit lived in an inner war zone that had no end, literally. And he repeated the same pattern that he had constructed for himself in the book 50 years later. If we do the math, it's literally hundreds of years imprisoned by the same patterns. How about us? How do we spend our days mentally speaking? How is our inner world? Are we picking battles silently, as Daisy said, where we seem composed, especially here in Northern Virginia, on the outside, but inside we are experiencing a war where no one is good enough, where we find a defect, so to speak. We find a way to criticize every single person we see. For instance, we may walk into the center and not say anything, but in our heads we think, oh, don't like the color of the wall. Don't like the way that person speaks. And while we're at it, why is that person speaking and not me? And as we are at it, why are the cups pink and not blue? And while we are at it, why is it that this person always walks in this way and this person always says the prayer in that way? If it were us, we would do it differently, and not only differently, but better. It's funny how we create an alternative universe in our minds that, as Vanessa said, is fully alienated from the truth. But somehow in our alternative universe, we always think our version is better than someone else. Why? Because we are escaping reality. What would have been the reality that Antero needed to see? The fact that he had reincarnated to renounce. No wonder the book is called Renunciation. Hint. He had reincarnated to learn to renounce. But if we stay caught in our mental prisons, sustained by mental battles, we are unable to renounce anything because we only think of ourselves. You're wondering what happened to Antero? Emmanuel will tell us. Emmanuel says he skillfully concealed the hateful anger clouding his mind and seemed resigned to the unfolding of the events. Emmanuel is such a skilled writer that this sounds, even though it's terrible, it sounds poetic, right? But but let's see reality as it truly is. It all boils down to the fact that Antero was being a hypocrite. And why are we using such a strong word? Because he seemed as if he was fully happy for his quote unquote friend, but deep inside, he was harboring a plan of vengeance. So we ourselves need to know who we are on the inside because we have not reincarnated. None of us in this room, ourselves included, we have not reincarnated to look pretty and to behave well. Mm-mm. We have reincarnated, as Daisy said, to master relationships. What is the thermometer for us to know if we are mastering relationships? How we feel about others. So we haven't reincarnated to be polite and nice to others and then feel hate towards them. We are reincarnated to achieve inner coherence. Mentor Joseph has dictated a message in a mediumistic meeting in the Spiritual Society of Baltimore years ago, where he tells all of us, strive to align your thoughts, your feelings with your thoughts, your actions, your choices, so that we are one person. We are not fragmented. We are not splitted. We are not one person here and then tomorrow morning another person in another scenario, and then next week another person in another scenario, and we are free of masks. What was Antero's problem, which is our problem as well? We wear masks. We do what we think people would like us to do, and we are not authentic. But why have we reincarnated? Exactly to learn to be authentic. Oh, but if Antero showed them how he feels, then he would be in trouble. Great, so learn how to feel differently. How? Develop virtues. Is it easy? No. This is why we are reincarnated. How do we develop virtues? Thank you, Master Jesus, for giving us the answer 2,000 years ago, and most importantly, for modeling the answer. Because it's not enough to say it. What is most important is to feel it. And Master Jesus is the master because he felt it. And without words alone, he exemplified it and still does in the spiritual realm. So, what is the way to align our thoughts and feelings with our actions and to no longer be hypocrites like Antero and like Susanna, and to rid ourselves of our torment? It is to do to others what we would like to receive. So let us put ourselves in Antero's place. If we were If Antero were the one getting married and had found someone that he had true affinity with, how would he like someone to feel about that particular situation? Of course, he would like the world to celebrate with him. The world meaning the people that he loves to celebrate with him. Had he thought about the golden rule, he would have been free from the torment because he would have given to Madalena and Cyril what he would like to have received. So here's our rule of thumb. If we are feeling jealous, which we all do, thank you, Daisy, for voicing it. It's important to recognize it. Thank you. If we are feeling envious, if we are feeling fearful, if we are feeling hatred, whatever torment we are in, how can we get out of it? By not thinking of ourselves. How can we guide ourselves towards that direction? By asking ourselves, how would we like the other person to feel about us? That will allow us to shift, to click, to literally snap out of it. So we can teach that to our children, remind them that this is the pathway, not for all of us, adults, children, teens alike. So, for example, going back to the example Vanessa gave, oh, the teacher didn't call me. Why? Think about it. If the teacher had called you, how would you like other people to feel? Happy for you. There you go. That's the end. But why is it so hard for adults, teens, and children alike? Why? The spirit mentors from on high working under the Christ answered to us very simply. Kardec kindly asked in question 785 of the Spirit's book, what is the greatest obstacle to progress? Please tell us. The answer is pride and selfishness. So why is it that we don't think about how others feel? Because we want to focus on us. So what is our greatest dis-ease? Is to focus on ourselves. So how can we find healing, inner healing? No longer focus solely on ourselves. This is when the golden rule comes to our rescue. And it is only when we are courageous enough to think of others that we are able to build feelings, because we will then have tools that will allow us to work truly, sincerely, authentically on our relationships. Why are our relationships so central? Because Emmanuel tells us, as feelings, true feelings, not manipulative feelings like or emotions like Antero, but true, authentic, sincere feelings develop, the spiritual being proceeds in stabilizing itself. Oh, I really want to have a better life. We really want to be peaceful. We really want to be serene. Emmanuel is giving us the answer. Develop true feelings for one another. As we develop true feelings for one another, the personality begins minimizing itself, and the inner constructions, meaning our virtues, become stronger, more solid, more stable. In this way, the spiritual being is strong enough to go on illuminating itself, and it rises leaving behind its badly constructed vibration. So, if we would like to change, the answer is work on our feelings. This is how we remodel our mental field, our emotions, our vibrations, according not to us, but to Emmanuel. Emmanuel explains the constructions of feelings begin. This is our starting point, friends. When we think of something beyond ourselves, when we place ourselves in a secondary position. So let us invite our children to do this. Come help mom feed the pet. Come help mom fold the laundry. Come, because then we are helping them to put themselves in a secondary position, learning to serve others. In truth, the thought is the cause of the action, but the feeling, Emmanuel really breaks it down for us, but the feeling is the vibratory mode through which thought and cause shape themselves. As we feel, we mold the idea. Exactly, Philippe. You said it all. So this is why it's so important for us to work in our feelings with sincerity, not through manipulation, as seen in Antero and Susanna's case. And who can be our coach, personal coach in this journey? Yes, the one and only Master. Thank you. He deserves all the drum rolls in the world. Master Jesus. So, as always, He is our number one inspiration for leaving our torments behind and elevating our vibrations, fulfilling the loving reincarnatory plan that God has beautifully designed uniquely for each and every one of us as children of God. So let us harbor this feeling of God's love for each of us in both realms as children that are uniquely loved and created as we prepare ourselves for the best friends. We are now in the best company in our world, the one and only.
Let us all feel the presence of Master Jesus. Thank God He loves us immensely. And He is the doctor that is providing to us the energy medicine that we need. Let us rejoice in His presence of love and kindness. Let us help one another by visualizing the spirit doctors here present and their loving kindness, together with Master Jesus, providing to each one of us the molecules of health and peace. Let us visualize flowers, flowers of healing. The colors of the flowers radiate loving light that heals us, enveloping each one of us in this light that calms us down and brings us new hope. The perfume of the flowers are deeply therapeutic. Let us inhale and exhale the healing perfume of the flowers that the loving spirits are offering to us. Let us now raise our thoughts in deep gratitude. Thank you, God, for your mercy unto us that brings us the hope and the opportunity of beginning anew. Thank you for the opportunity of renewal always. We pray that everyone who is connected to our hearts and are in greater need than us, may they receive a shower of strength, fortifying them in their trials and tribulations. May tonight we come back here while the physical bodies are asleep, so we can continue learning with your spirit teachers, the educators of the beyond who love us dearly and are aiming at help our evolution. Thank you, God. And so be
Friends, we have two announcements. First is if you haven't signed up but you like to contribute to the donations, just reminding that starting this month we'll be doing two separate services. We will be doing the bags and the to-go box that will go to the shelter in Reston, and then we'll also go to DC